Welcome to the Impact Over Optics podcast, a place where real progress shines beyond appearances and distractions. Here, voices from across industries come together to share wisdom, stories, and strategies that remind us what's possible when purpose leads the way. Because true progress is not measured by how it looks, but by the impact it leaves behind. Let's get started.
Welcome to the Impact Over Optics podcast, a podcast where we go beyond appearances and focus on what really moves the needle: authentic leadership, purposeful results, and lasting impact. I'm really excited this month because we're going to continue a topic we started last month on authentic connections. But this time we're going to go a little bit deeper into the friendship side. And if you recall from last month, I started to become a book nerd and talked about David Burkus, a book I read called Friend of a Friend of a Friend of a Friend of a Friend. And he talks in part of that book about multiplexity. And you're going to hate or love this word by the time you're done hearing me talk. But the idea that we have multiple threaded relationships, the more often we can dig into the friendship side, the better our business is, and vice versa. Oftentimes we end up taking friendships and starting businesses like the three of us have. So I think friendship's a really important one, and friendship as an element of self-care, we're going to explore a bit. And I honestly don't know where this conversation is going to go. And I want to go in the Wayback Machine. Jon, I'll start with you, but growing up, Wayback Machine, what did being a good friend mean to you when you were younger?
Companionship. And I think if I were to distill it down to a single word, it would probably be companionship, right? So I grew up, I have two younger brothers. One is 2 years younger than me and one is 12 years younger than me. It's not nice to call him Oops, but we'll call him Andrew. My 2-year younger brother, Josh, and I were typical kids growing up, right? Rough and tumble. We played outside. We did everything. And like typical brothers, we fought and we played and we did all the things that kids do together. Found my sort of best friend at the time, a guy by the name of Corey. And Corey and I really sort of hit it off. And I think the thing about being a good friend at that time in my life was it was companionship. Because with Josh, like sometimes we fought, sometimes we played. With Corey, it was we always played and we always were adventuring and doing things like that. So it was companionship, I think, that I really was diving into and wanted at that moment, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah.
How about you?
Oh my goodness. I have
to go back way further than
I
some
have
of
to
us.
go back way further. All of these are earned. Thank you very much. I have a younger sister, 5 years different. So there was a lot of differences. I didn't have that same sort of built-in companion that you get along the way. We're super close growing up. We're super close now today. But I remember my first friends at school and my best friend at the time, a gentleman by the name of Saul. We just kind of always wanted to do everything together. And everything was always a little bit better when we were hanging out. And we didn't live in the same neighborhood. So there was a transportation issue. We always had to get our parents to move us around. It wasn't like there was even really access to phones a lot of times. So, making a phone call was still something you didn't normally do. But man, we would get together and we would just create. And that was the most fun. I've never told this story. We used to write these crazy radio plays and we would record them on a cassette tape and then play them back to each other.
You were a podcaster before you were
and now that you say that, it's so funny. I was a podcaster back in the day when there was no distribution media at the time. But oh my God, we would listen to, now this really dates me, Dr. Demento. If you remember going all the way back to those sorts of things, when they would do those silly radio plays and we would just make our own. It was always fun. Every time we were together, it was just, I'm with my best friend, love being with him. I love all the things that we would do together, the adventures we would have, the stories we would tell each other, the things we would make up, the games we would play. It was just, I always knew it was going to be a good time whenever we get together.
It's great.
What about you, Dave?
Well, it's there's a couple layers to this. One is, when you grow up, a lot of times people are asking you questions like, who's your best friend? And there's this established idea that you're supposed to have a best friend. And I think as a kid, what I really enjoyed about a friendship was, what I wrote down was play without judgment. You would just play. And I remember, silly things. I'm literally listening to you guys and I'm remembering going to the backyard of these three young girls from our elementary school and using badminton rackets to play guitar. Things that as an adult now you'd think you'd watch kids doing that and that's cute, but you probably wouldn't do that as an adult. But there was just no judgment. You didn't stop. And as an adult, I look back on those moments with fondness. I don't judge myself. We would just play. Eternal twin brother. We would just play. The time would be boundless, and that sense of being a good friend was really about just being in companionship with somebody and playing. And I think the second part of this question, and you guys are both going to have to answer this, is how did the companionship and the play parts of your lives, how does that have informed your expectations of adult friendships?
Let me back up and say, and I don't want to get too far down this rabbit hole. We could talk for an hour on this. As adults, we have forgotten how to play.
Damn straight.
Right. And that is like when I look at the stress in my life, the times that I have been at the edge, it's because I forgot to enjoy relationships, to go outside and play, to run, to do the things that bring you joy. So I think when I look at that and consider that, what I did was, in essence, I forgot the importance of play. And I let, you had mentioned judgment, right? There was no judgment.
Right.
I allowed my self sort of conscious, my awareness be fearful of other people's judgment. So playing now was not fun. You know, I'll pick on Jim for a little bit. Sometimes I like to make fun of him because he's a gamer. He enjoys playing games. And now I am sort of reformed and I am enjoying playing games. I sent Jim a picture the other day. I was literally sitting with my wife and at 8:00 in the morning, we had nothing going on. We'd been up for a couple hours. So we played some games. We chose to do that. And I think, again, when you get older, you get so fearful of what people think, what they're going to judge you. So you stop playing. So I think to answer that question, how does that carry over? It stinks because we stop being good at it and we stop focusing on what that gave us. Like, again, when you think about the times you played as a kid and all the adventures I had in the backyard and the forts that we built in the woods, it was innocence and it was fun, and we allowed creativity to drive what we did. We become adults and we get so stiff. We wear suits to work.
Oh, I'm coming to that.
And we lose that. I think the sad part about that is we miss how to connect to that innocence, how we miss the opportunity to connect with the creativity and that judgment-free space of free spirit.
Right. Like, what would I say? If I said to you right now, the floor is lava, Jon, what would you do?
Oh my word, I'd be jumping on the chair. And if I wasn't afraid of knocking over everything that's sitting here, I literally just
in reality, you'd probably say later, right? We'll do that after work hours.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. So Jon mentioned the fact that in last month when we talked, I talked about for the first 10 years of my career, it was suit jacket and tie that I wore to the office. I remember my father going to work and he worked for the same company his entire life. He was full career man the whole time. And when I knew him as I was a child growing up, I remember him going to work in the same way. He literally carried a briefcase. He went on the train. He went into the city. He did his work. He came home. It all felt very formal. And that felt that there needed to be this transition, if you will, between being a child, being a student, being a university student where your play can be all kinds of crazy. And then you finish and then it stops. Game over. Now you're married. Now you're going to work every day. Now you're putting on the uniform that is armor and a defense and a barrier all at the same time and walking in. And like I said last month, the thing that I finally got to was, oh man, let some of that go. Take that pull out of your butt. Just relax a little bit and see what else you can do.
Right. You went right down Jon's rabbit hole and you that was great. I that sense of play, I have to go down the same thread you guys are in because most of our adult lives, right? There's a gray area. And one thing, to just continue what you were talking about, when we talk about friendships at work and friendships outside of work, and we talk about the boundary areas a little bit vague, we like to draw these strict boundaries. And you just brought up a really good point that with childhood, it's like we're playing to be adults, as if we're going to graduate to become an adult, right? And we lose the childhood element. And I think it's really important when we talk about friendship that we're bringing back the fact that, well, a blended friendship is bringing in all pieces of us, right? We carry every age of ourselves into these friendships. We're not just an adult. We're a teenager, a juvenile, a kid. And there's got to be some element of play, especially I've been doing some writing lately. A group of friends of mine encouraged me just to write. And when I write, I refuse to go to ChatGPT and ask it for advice. I do a lot of little research here and there, but I'm usually just writing down my thoughts. It's the closest thing I have right now to play outside of like organized sports. And it feels nice, right? It feels like I'm just playing, right? There's no one's keeping score sometimes. I mean, I guess as kids, we did keep score a lot, but usually it was more just, it was, 1 million to 2 million. You weren't keeping logical score. You were just, I like this idea of bringing more play back into friendships and finding a way to do it in a way that it is calling back to our childhood.
And play looks different. We're not building forts anymore, but we're taking vacations. And we're going together and adventuring in Charlotte to hear a Bruce Hornsby concert. Like, we adventure differently, we play differently. But again, I know for me, it has been I have had to be intentional about chasing the play,
Yeah.
keeping those things in my life. I wish it was more natural like it was when we were.
Because we judge.
Yes.
And that was exactly as you were saying that. I thought to myself, my play as a child was non-judgmental. Now, as an adult, in some ways, we talked last month about performance, right? When you perform for your boss. In some ways, in relationships in the workplace, you're still performing for them too. And it's this, how am I thinking about, I can move a little bit beyond that. I can move a little bit more forward. I can play with this person. We can interact together in a way that's teasing or joyful or fun or silly or sad or whatever it needs to be at that time to make that a little bit more authentic.
And I want to bring this back a little bit to the original topic. And this is really asking you a question, Jim, I haven't asked you yet. But, we started talking about friendships. And for this episode, we talked about friendship as an element of self-care.
Right.
And I'd love for you to define what you mean when you said that.
And that's a really, really good thing. For the longest time, especially in my work relationships, especially as I became more of a leader, there was always an element where I was reserving a piece of myself as the leader. I didn't feel like I could lean into some of my relationships in the same way that I do now, because I still felt that barrier. And as a leader, like the suit and the tie came off, but the leader role was still on, right? As I started to be stressed, be frustrated, be unhappy, be not able to really enjoy those relationships, I really needed to think about what was the problem. And of course, the problem is usually me. It was my approach to the thing. I wasn't thinking about how this relationship could nourish me as much as I was protecting and serving them. And once I got to that element, those relationships got deeper still, because that person felt like I don't want to say the word validated, that's not right, but that person felt like they could give back to me in the same way that I was giving back to them. And that allowed me to get the care and for them to feel better about the relationship along the way.
I love that. It's weird, when you think about I shouldn't say it's weird. I sometimes struggle to talk about self-care in the context of, I feel selfish. I don't want it to be about me. You guys have both heard me talk about Simon and Trevor's podcast on friendship. And I think that now I look at friendship in the context of self-care a little bit differently. I felt for a long part of my life, being a good friend meant that I was always there for you when you needed something. When you were hurting, I was the guy that was going to step up for you. They framed friendship in a different context, in that truly being a friend means the moments that you need help, you reach out and you ask for that. So again, I look at, in my mind, when I think of self-care in the context of friendship, it's become a different thing for me in the past year or two, because now I do look at friendship as self-care. When I am struggling, I rely on the people that are closest to me. I probably have a handful of guys that are in my life that they're my go-tos, and the two of you are two of them. But it has become now that self-care, that way to heal myself, because I am comfortable enough saying I'm a sensitive guy. That was never cool when we were young, right? You wanted to be the tough guy. I'm sensitive. And being able to acknowledge that and have people around you that can support that. And when you're in your time of need, and I don't want to even use the word leveraging when I talk about friendship, because it shouldn't be a negative thing, but embracing that and allowing that to be what feeds you, cares for you, and helps you through your season of difficulty.
Yeah. It's interesting to me that so many of my adult friendships have unscripted followed a path like that. And when you brought up that podcast, it highlighted something that maybe was already happening organically. And I bring up examples where, I went through, I have a friend, Paul, my friend Paul, and I, 19 years ago this week, his mom passed away. And he told me that, and I was like, oh, it's been 19 years, right? I was there for him, at least listening as a friend during that. And then I went through a divorce, and he was there for me. And like unexpectedly, he went through a divorce, and I was there for him. And we started to get to this point where we joke now, like, how did you become such a soft person? Like, why do you know what the moon's in Mercury retrograde? How do you know all those things now? But we've evolved into these people who are much more comfortable. We joke about it, right? There's some laughter and levity, but our friendship has become much more about that reciprocal nature of friendship. And it's about being willing to share your challenges, knowing that your friends got your back, but also knowing that they're going to need you at some point. And it's childhood friendships probably a little more naive. We didn't need that. You bridge into these adult friendships, and you still have an element of all of that, though. Like I said before, you're bringing that childhood with you. You're learning to share, and if you need a wake up by like a Trevor Noah, that's great. But if you do it right, or I shouldn't say right, I don't want to judge, but the authenticity just sort of comes through time as long as you're both being willing to practice that.
And that is, there's currency that you need to spend to do that. And that currency is paid in through trust, right? We trust, and that empowers us to feel comfortable, to make that connection, to have that transparency, to have that authenticity. So again, it's everything I feel like when we talk about it ultimately comes back to trust and building trust with people around you to enable the emotions, the connections, the authenticity that we talk about. I love it. So let's talk about building friendships and how that has sort of evolved over time. Have either of you experienced a friendship that grew out of difficulty rather than it sort of breaking apart? Like I can think of some of my friendships that have been stressed because of difficulty. Do either of you have a good example where the difficulty is what actually drew you closer?
I have a great example. So mid in my time working at Oracle, when I was first introduced to this guy, our boss at the time said, you two need to go figure out how this particular software is going to work, and it's going to have to scale, and it's going to have to be highly available, and it's going to have to be enterprise grade. And it was not even close to ready for that. And we were sort of the team of last resort who got handed this thing and said, okay, go find all the warts and go explain what's going on when a customer would use it in the same way. This guy, so he was in California, I'm in Pennsylvania, we're working together, and we wound up getting into this rhythm where I would get up at 6 a.m. I would start testing and working on things. He'd come online at 9 o'clock his morning, my noontime. We'd open a conference call, and we would have that call open. This is pre-Zoom and anything else. It's just an audio call for 6 hours. And we would be on, I would come offline, about 6 or 7 o'clock at night. He would stay on work until about 9 o'clock at his night, constant, over and over, week after week. We were doing this thing, total, just heads down. Well, a couple of months into this thing, I said, well, why don't you come to Pennsylvania as a single guy living alone in California? I was like, come spend a weekend at my house, hang out, we'll do stuff together. Well, to cut that story a little bit short, that's now my brother-in-law, who's been married to my sister for 20 years. That stress in that work relationship absolutely bonded the two of us together enough for me to feel so comfortable to say, listen, I know you're just a great human being. Come and hang out with us a little bit. And he met my kids, he met my wife, eventually obviously met my sister, and then the rest, long-term history. Yeah, it was, but it was great.
How about you?
Just like every time these questions come up, I've got like 10 ones going off in my head, and I'm going to answer the question in a way that's not directly how you asked it, but I had an experience this morning, and by the time this comes out, this will be 2 months ago. But I'm dealing with a challenge right now, really difficult. The cat's recently diagnosed with an illness, and your wife, right? She showed up for me this morning in a very difficult time. I was frenetically going to cancel this podcast, right? I didn't know what to do. I was like, these guys are driving all the way out here. And I can't help but believe she and I went a different level just this morning in the conversation, because in a matter of 10 minutes, she interviewed me like a veterinarian would, very professional. And then she talked to me like a friend would. And she got me to understand that what I was going through was normal. She was also comfortable with that. I wouldn't say I wouldn't be here. I would be here with a lot less, I would be a lot less relaxed without that sort of, that friendship. So when I heard I read the question and I keep going, yeah, it just happened this morning, right? It's not a difficult season, but a difficult moment, but that friendship grew. And I'm so lucky to have people who used to be customers who become friends, but when the friendships continue to deepen, it's pretty awesome. So thanks you, Sharon.
Yeah, she's an incredible person. Honestly, if I were to think about a friendship that has deepened through difficulty, I'm going to use Sharon too.
Wow.
Okay. Here's the deal. Second marriage for both of us. We knew going into this relationship that if we didn't focus on the friendship first and the connection, that we would struggle to be successful. And what I refused to be was another statistic. I did not want to be that guy who had 15 ex-wives. Wasn't going to be me. So we focused hard on building the friendship. And Within a year of getting married, I had a fairly serious illness that lasted almost a year. I was out of work for 9 months. We worked together. She took care of me. I did what I could to take care of her. That was followed up immediately by almost losing our business. We went through a season of financial difficulty where we almost lost our business. That was followed by another medical scare where she actually died in a surgical procedure and was resuscitated. We have had a lot of difficulty, a lot of stress that has forced us to focus on that relationship and building that friendship. So I love my wife dearly. And I love the fact that we are best friends. And some of that friendship, a lot of that friendship was born out of the difficult times, the stresses, the things that most couples, and I shouldn't even say most, that would destroy some couples, and not even just couples, just friends in whole. Stress can break that apart, but we've been fortunate enough to be able to leverage that into something that builds us rather than breaks us. So I'm a lucky guy.
You are a lucky guy.
What else do you guys want to talk about?
This is a rich topic and I don't want to end it yet. I'm going to come back to, let's tie it back a little bit to work. Not because we have to, but because it makes sense. We're investing in relationships. All three of us shared a relationship that doesn't really tie to work. But how has that investment in deeper relationships, how has it benefited you at work? Either one of you can start.
You want to
I worked with my wife.
It started
For 20 years. I shared an office
You're
with her.
cheating.
No, when I think about building friendships, I really do believe that it is like building muscle memory. The things that we do to develop the friendships with the people that are around us are transferable skills that you can use in other places. I recently had sort of transitioned back into a role, an expanded role that I hadn't done before with the organization that I'm with currently. And it's a lot of new people and a lot of new things. And I think in my 20s and 30s, I would have really struggled with that because it would have felt different and unknown. And I would have probably been very cautious. Being able to build real relationships, real friendships has given me a level of confidence that I think in the workplace, I'm okay with that. I am okay with sharing vulnerability first. I don't need you to show me your vulnerability before I show you mine. I have gotten comfortable enough in my own skin being vulnerable. And so I think the way that it has helped me from a friendship side into the business side, it's allowed me to become a better coworker, a better leader, and ultimately more effective in what I do because I can build those relationships faster.
One of the things we talk about in terms of connection over time and work relationships evolving over time. There are people, again, I've been at the same company for 30 years. There are people you meet and you'll be on a project with, or you'll be on a team with for years, and then you'll roll off. You'll go somewhere else. They'll go somewhere else, how things evolve. There are people I've stayed in touch with, and a lot of us all work from home. One of the things I became very, very intentional about is scheduling calls in my diary with someone who is a work colleague who became a friend, even though we're not working on the same project anymore. And that level of connection that we built, we continue to maintain, we continue to refresh. And it's amazing how many times I am talking to the same guy every week. We have our scheduled call. And in that scheduled call, the topics will go everywhere, but almost always, more than 50% of the time, there's some work thing involved. I'm hearing about what he's doing. He's sharing something with me about what they're doing. Sometimes we wind up collaborating on something we didn't expect to collaborate on all the time. I sit in an office by myself, surrounded by monitors with a keyboard, with my back to the door, working, building those friendships and having those friendships carry over and having them be maintained and refreshed has really served me in terms of making that work balance be something that is just helping me be able to get through my day without feeling like every day is another Zoom meeting from one to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next, where you're like taking 5 minutes in between calls to go run and do something and come back again. Sometimes I look forward, I see that in my calendar. I'm like, oh, that's so good. I can't wait to have that conversation now.
Yeah. It ties back to last month when I was talking about David Brooks had mentioned the 4 things, and I'm not going to try to remember them again, that take
It's so well the last time.
I had it written down. There's shared purpose. There's vulnerability. One of them is proximity. And what you're doing in that case is you're actually intentionally creating that proximity because there's no more coffee run-ins in the hallway, right? If you're working fully remote. I love the fact that you're doing that. For me, that's something similar. I intentionally blur the line sometimes. when we worked for a company, I worked for a company that's a startup. I was just playing in my name, all the names of people I still text occasionally just to check in on.
Mm.
And we had, our offices were above a bar. And so second,
That
third,
would
and
be a
fourth floor,
disaster.
we called the first floor, we called it the first floor conference room. So whenever we had a hairy problem to solve, or if it was 4 o'clock and we just wanted to, we would go down, 3, 4, 5 of us, all those people. We developed a friendship because we were never just going down just to shoot the breeze. We're usually stuck, and we'd work together on this. And I, like I said, I intentionally blur the lines of friendship. I was the one who would organize a monthly happy hour at a different microbrewery because, well, I was single, but also I was like, let's go. And people would come, intentionally blurring that line. And sometimes people would come and ask a work question, but most times it was just, hey, let's discharge, let's be friends for a while. And that those type of experiences, I intentionally blur those lines sometimes. And it's because friendships are so important and so valuable. If you can do them at work, it's a multiplexity, guys.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, guys, let's wrap this up. And we always sort of ask the same question as we tie this up, which is, what is the walkaway? What do the listeners need to take away about friendship?
Yeah, I'm going to go back to our start here, which is I'm stealing both of yours. It's going to be about build more play into your day. Is your adult friendships, just find ways to play and define it your own way.
I think I want to take that and maybe even go to the intro. Be open to it. Be open to the fact that somebody may be trying to send you a signal that they're looking to make that connection on the way. Don't just assume you have to do it. There's probably things in your environment where you'll see that that's there. And once you see that that's there and you start to, for me, taking off the armor, taking off the leadership role and just say, yeah, I can trust you. I can be vulnerable with you. We can play together. We can laugh together. That's so important, just to look for those opportunities.
I think my takeaway is choose vulnerability. Choose to be the kind of friend that is willing to share. And that's a two-way street, because not only is it be the friend that can be there for others, but be the friend that is vulnerable and is willing to trust when they need to reach out. Guys, this one was really good. This was important to me because I think at the end of the day, as we look at doing podcasting and sharing these things, it's not just about delivering something. It's about the relationships.
Yes.
So again, I'm Jon Detweiler here with literally two of my best friends. And I truly do appreciate you guys taking the time to listen to this. Again, remember, authentic change always outlasts appearance. Until next time, lead with purpose and leave a real mark.
Thanks again for joining us on the Impact Over Optics podcast. We hope today's insights sparked fresh ideas and reminded you of the power of purpose-driven work. Please share this episode with others who believe in real change, and join us again as we continue to look beyond appearances and focus on the impact that truly lasts.